If you're a good leader, you take full responsibility for their behavior. You are in charge of the narrative and the energy in the room. Take control. Stay on the high road. Let them join you there.
How do I deal with a 3-year-old who says no to everything?
What does it matter if she says no? It still has to be done.
How do I stop yelling, staying calm when all 4 girls are freaking out, fighting, and hitting?
Welcome to the BratBusters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at BratBusters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Okay, sweetie, what are we talking about today?
Today's topic is, should we be blaming kids for defiance and acting out?
Good. You know I love this one.
I know you do. So, take it away.
Okay, should we be blaming kids for being naughty? No, it's on you. Now, toddlers are crazy anyway. They're going to do crazy stuff. No one's to blame for that. They're just experimenting. They're discovering. They're exploring their bodies. They're sticking their hands down their pants, smearing poop on the wall. They're just nuts anyway. But past the age of 3, any of their bad behavior is on you. It means that you're not correcting them. You don't have consistent consequences. You're not calm when you're disciplining. You're not playing with them enough. So always blame yourself. Take full responsibility for their bad behavior past the age of 3. Always. Is it always your fault? Probably not. But you take responsibility for it anyway. It's your job to train them into good behavior and out of bad behavior.
Now, if this is someone's first time tuning into a podcast, I might envision that they don't even know that your name's Lisa. All they saw was the word BratBusters, and they're thinking, brat, people, what are your thoughts on the word brat?
Well, that was a term that was sort of invented by, I used to mentor troubled teens. And one of them, and actually a few of them started saying this, you're always busting brats. So that's where it comes from. They sort of, and I just thought it was funny. Also, I figure that if anyone's offended by that, they don't get the humor. I don't want to work with you anyway. You're not going to like me anyway. So it's supposed to be funny. I've never called a kid a brat.
I do find it interesting. Also online, so now that we've touched on that topic, I see in comments, I see just in general about the idea of parenting is when kids are acting out, often the parents will say, oh, my kid is really controlling. My kid is really this and that. What are your thoughts when parents start shifting that blame onto their kids?
Well, I find that interesting because you're supposed to love your kids more than yourself, right? Or that's my view anyway. You're supposed to put their lives ahead of yours, their welfare ahead of yours, because most parents would risk their lives to save their kids, right? And yet they're very quick to blame their kids for their behavior because they don't want to blame themselves. I find that fascinating. I don't even understand that. Like if my kids had acted out, I would think, I got some work to do here. What did I do wrong when I was working with kids? And they weren't even my kids. And if they acted out under my care and my mentorship, then I would think, what am I missing here? What am I doing wrong? I just find that fascinating that parents are very quick to blame their kids, but not themselves. Some of them get very offended that I blame them. Well, then you're not going to listen to me anyway, because you want to take the blame. You want to take the responsibility. Why would you want to blame your children and not yourself? I can't even compute that.
And then let's talk about the difference between the toddler and the 3 to 12 year.
Okay. Toddlers are forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years and the first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. They are cute as a button, but they've only got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around upstairs. They've got a lot of brain power, but they have no experience yet. They don't understand concussions. They don't understand danger. I mean, they just don't have experience yet. That's what they're lacking. It's not that they're stupid. It's just that they just are forming. They're just discovering everything. Okay. So yeah, they are different. They're going to try crazy stuff, and it's your job to train them out of that. But it doesn't usually happen the first time. It's done with consistent corrective actions, and it's got to be right in the moment. So if they hit someone, you say no, and then you take them away from the fun or take the fun away from them for a short period. So they will connect the dots. They will connect the dots that if I hit someone, then I'm going to have some fun taken away from me. They've got to connect the dots. Okay. They're learning right from wrong. Past the age of 3, they already know right from wrong. And you can use the behavior board because they have the ability at 3 years old. They're more developed. They can stop and think before they act. They can actually prevent the bad behavior on their own. When they're really little, that's hard. It takes longer. It's repetition with toddlers. And by the way, to break that down, to me, a toddler is 16 to 35 months.
And you talked about this, I think, before, just in general about building up kids' self esteem. I can envision as well, whether it's behind the kid's back or even in front of them, if parents are blaming their kids for their bad behavior, I would imagine that's got to be a hit to your self esteem.
Now, there's certain phrases that I've never used, and I'll tell you why. It's when you say to a child, "Why would you do that? You know better. You're a good boy. Why would you act like that?" That is it's nasty. It cuts them down. I would say, "Well, that was bad. Here's your consequence, or I'm taking this away." But I don't tell them they are bad. The behavior can be bad, but they're not bad. Yeah, it's too bad that parents do that, and I can understand why they do, because they're frustrated and they don't understand kids yet. If you don't have a lot of experience with kids, I've been doing this for 50 plus years. If you don't have a lot of experience with kids, it's harder to understand why they would do something when they know they shouldn't do it and they know it'll probably be a consequence. The problem is that you're not always consistent either. If they don't know for sure that there's going to be a consequence, sometimes you're good at that, sometimes you're not. They're going to keep doing it anyway. And that's what parents don't understand. Well, I'm really good usually. Yeah, but the word usually wrecks it all. You got to be consistent. So pick your battles. And when I say when you're getting started with all this, even with toddlers, just pick a battle, pick a behavior that you want to deal with and focus on, and just do that. Just perfect that. Then move on to the next bad behavior that you want to focus on. I would do it all at once because I'm level 10 with this because I invented all this stuff. So, but yeah, when you're just learning how to do this, pick a battle, pick a bad behavior that you want to deal with, but you got to nail it. You got to get it perfectly. You can't sometimes get it right and sometimes not. You got to be really consistent.
Okay, should we get into the questions?
Sure.
The first one is Dan from the United States. My wife and I have a 5 year old, a 3 year old, and the third is due in December. Our 5 year old has been behaving in ways she knows are not okay, hitting, slapping, kicking for effect, not to injure, blowing raspberries with her tongue, screaming, and running around like a maniac. The result of this is our 3 year old copying her misbehavior, sometimes at preschool, which results in behavioral reports or dismissal. Our 5 year old has also been baby talking lately, stating she picked it up from a classmate. I assume that has something to do with the upcoming baby, something to do with the recent transition to kindergarten. They're very smart kids, and I wonder if she's just acting out, but she's not just acting out, but manipulating him, as she loves to blame things on him or point out what he's done wrong. Maybe she thinks this is the way to compete for our attention? Question mark.
They only do what works past the age of 4. If she doesn't get enough good attention, she'll go for the bad attention. That could be it. Most parents will pop in here and say, "Well, no, I play with them all the time." Okay, that's good then. Don't That's not what it is. But yeah, it must mean it works in some way. It must get under your skin. It must annoy you. And if they only do what works past the age of 3 years and 9 months to 4 years old. They only do what works. So how are you making that work? How are you giving her a lot of attention? Are you buying into it? Are you listening to all of her excuses rather than just handing out a consequence? If she hits, say, "Okay, let's go to the board. You hit, here's your consequence." It's all the discussions around it. Parents want to do that. I don't discuss bad behavior. I just deal with it. I don't discuss it. Why? She already knows. You said she's very smart, and yet parents still keep trying to explain everything to them. So I get this a lot. Parents in the very first session when I'm coaching them will tell me how gifted their child is, and then about the third session, "Well, we have to keep explaining because they don't understand." I said, "Wait a minute. In session 1 they were gifted, now they're a raving moron? Like, come on. You don't need to keep." She already knows right from wrong at 5 years old. "I think you're explaining too much. I really do." And follow through with consequences. Every time she hits, there's a consequence. Also, what's the little brother doing? Is the little brother doing something like antagonizing her? Watch that. Often parents go after the hitter, not the one who started it. I go after both. I go after the instigator and I go after the finisher, whoever finishes the war too. Also, she said she picked up this stuff from school. When you're a leader, they're not influenced by other people. In other words, they have very strong sense of self and right from wrong. So if they are influenced from others, that says to me that you're not a leader. When you're not a leader, they are very susceptible to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the Kardashians. You get the idea. They're influenced by others because they're searching out leadership. If they don't have it at home, they'll search for it elsewhere.
You have talked about, and I'm not saying this is this specific scenario, but you've talked about parents also going through the motions with play.
Yeah, this is kind of a tricky one to explain. They know when you're pretending to enjoy them and when you're enjoying them. They just know. Um, and especially as they get older. When they're 2, they don't care so much, but when they get older, they know. So if you're just going through the motions and you go, "Okay, 5 more minutes," you can say 5 more minutes in a nice way, but oftentimes parents will say, Okay, 5 more minutes, let's go. You gotta find a way to enjoy being with your kids. I know that's tricky. You wouldn't believe how much time I spend in coaching trying to find ways that parents can enjoy their kids. Because a lot of my clients, they're really highly functioning in the business world or whatever, and they're very, they're very sort of they don't like goofing around with kids. They're in the business world, they're very serious, they're very successful, and they say, "I don't wanna sit in the ground and play Barbies." So we have to find other ways for them to enjoy their kids. I always say you play with them in their world, but sometimes you can incorporate your own interests in that. A good example of that is music. I've had clients who are musicians and they said, we're very cerebral. We don't like goofy stuff at all. And kids do like goofy stuff. They love play and fun. That's their love language. So I say, well, with music, I said, couldn't you get the kids like some instrument where they just a triangle or something? You can include them in your music somehow. And that's helped because I always say you enter their world, but you can sometimes pull them into your interests.
Okay.
And a lot of it another one I had, a few years ago now, she was just adorable, this mom, and she said she was a very sweet lady, and she said, I've just never played with kids, I've never enjoyed playing with kids," and I said, "Well, what do you like?" She was a really good storyteller, and she actually gave me permission to tell this. I won't go into detail, though, but it was so sweet, and I said, "Well," and I said, "Okay, you're a good storyteller, give me an example of that," and she said, "Well, what I like to do is I like to, tell stories about people I know, I incorporate them into the story." So I said, "Well, tell me a story." And she did, and she incorporated me into it, and she kinda nailed my personality too, like, it was really cute the way she talked about I was a character in her little story. And I was almost crying. I wanted to curl up in her lap, like, it was on video, so I couldn't, I probably would've. But she just had the most loving way about her, and I said, "Well, do you do that with your kids?" And she goes, "No," and I couldn't believe she didn't. She started doing that with their kids, incorporating them into stories. Everything started to change after that because the mom was genuinely enjoying their company. It was really sweet.
That is, and I think that's a good reminder is that there's so many different ways to connect with kids.
My connection, I'm very goofy, and, I'm just am, I always was, and, so it was easier for me. So, just because I do like a lot of the same thing kids I like goofy stuff, so, it was easier for me. But a lot of my clients most people aren't goofy, I don't think. You're not goofy, your brother's not goofy. Yeah, I'm the only goofy one in the family. So, I would say I'm more of a rarity, not necessarily in a good way, but anyway, but yeah, you can still find ways to really enjoy your children. Like if you love sports, you can get them into sports. You can, whatever you enjoy, try to find a way to make it kid friendly too. Another client of mine was an artist. And we got the kids all set up with an easel beside the parents or something. I can't remember exactly what that was, but we got the kids set up to include them in the art. And it changed everything.
It'll be great because when I have kids one day, I'll set them up with their own little mini laptop and they'll be editing podcasts right with me.
She loves business. That's why she's working in the biz. She does all the marketing, all the planning. You love business. So you'll find a way to incorporate kids into the business.
No, I'll do it with cooking. I know for sure.
She loves cooking. Yeah, I hate it. So, but yeah, that's what you'll do for sure. And fitness, you love fitness. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, you play with them in their world, but you can still pull them into your interests. Well, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Does it? You can still somehow incorporate them into what you like, in a kid-friendly way,
Is it finding their world in your interests?
I guess. Something like that. I think you get what I'm saying, like with the music, you're not expecting them to like the same music or whatever, but if you genuinely love music, you'll probably find a way to incorporate them and with their own little instruments and that.
Okay. The next one is Christina from the United States. I have 4 girls, ages 7, 4, 4, and 3. Home alone half the year. My husband works offshore. How do I stop yelling, staying calm when all 4 girls are freaking out, fighting, and hitting? I only have 2 arms to stop them from hurting each other. I move one kid away and they immediately get back up. I mean, how do I even start this process?
You start with the behavior board. They're all old enough to be on it. And the behavior board has you on it also. And you pick one battle. I would suggest your rule should be no yelling. The kids' rule should be no hitting or no aggressive behavior. So no hurting other people, something like that. So, but put it up on the behavior board. It's completely free on my website, BratBusters.com, and you put out rules and consequences for everybody. So everyone who's 3 and above has a rule, and everybody 3 and above has a consequence. The kids always have 2 consequences. The first one is a positive action, so a good deed. If they do something naughty, you get them to do a consequence, a good deed. If they won't do that, then you resort to the negative deprivation consequence, like 24-hour media blackout. It's their choice. It's their choice to break the rule in the first first place, then it's also their choice to not do that first consequences. So they have the first two choices in this. Then if they choose poorly the first two times, then you come in with the negative deprivation. And that's their choice. That's the way I treat it. That was your choice. It wasn't mine. I don't want to have to do this, you know. So, but yeah, just stay completely calm. You're on there too. When you yell, you do a consequence for them. The consequence has to suit them. It has to be of benefit to them. You yell at them, you have to play hide and seek for 10 minutes or something. It's just something that you don't normally do and they would love. Okay. Um, it's funny because parents will often say, "You'd be so proud of me, Lisa, because I didn't yell all week." It's in coaching. And I say, "I told you to yell." You want to make sure that you show them it's okay to make mistakes so long as you make it up to them. Like what I mean is you show them that we're not perfect. Yeah, we mess up. That's why we've got a rule on there too. It's not about perfection. It's about being accountable for your mistakes, okay? And then eventually you'll just stop yelling and they'll stop acting out. Takes time though. Then the next week you got a brand new behavior board. So you're going to have two of them, two different battles, okay? Two different rules on there. So one the first week you have no hitting. The second week might be put your shoes and coat away within 5 minutes of arriving home. That might be the new rule. So you can have something you either want them to stop doing or something you want them to start doing. Your rule might be no looking at my phone during dinner. That's a really common one for dads, is no phones at the dinner table. That's the dad's rule. If he does, then he can't have his phone for the rest of the night. Or if he has teenagers, then they get to give him a makeover, something fun. Your consequence should be something fun for the kids.
It's a lot of kids, though, around the same age.
It is, but it sometimes makes it a little bit easier. You want me to go on about that?
I do, because in my head, I'm just like, wow, 4 kids, that's a lot.
Yeah, but they can all have the same rule. Makes it easier. So if they all hit and all that, you can put no hitting for all of them. If you have a 16-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 3-year-old, it can be more difficult because it's almost like you're 3 different parents almost. But this way, you're the same consistent parent. You can have the same rule. It makes it easier.
Okay, the next one is Megan from Canada. 2 sons, 9 and almost 14. I mostly have challenges with the 9-year-old. We could be having the best day, and when it's time for bed and specifically brushing his teeth, he turns the switch and will ignore me and will try and run away from me and not listen. I don't want to extend bedtime, so if he has to do a chore for not listening, that could make everything take longer.
Yeah. You don't do the consequence until the next day. And you can put on the behavior board, follow bedtime routine, and then have a list of everything he has to do. And then the next day, if he doesn't do it, then the next day you say, because you can't force him to brush his teeth at 9 years old, but the next morning you say, by the way, let's go to the board. And then you say, okay, so let's look at you didn't follow bedtime routine. Here's your consequence. So the consequence is the next morning.
Okay, the next one is Krishna from the United States. How do I deal with a 3-year-old who says no to everything? I say it's time for pull ups. She says no. Say it's time for brushing. She says no. We have to threaten her with the police or taking toys away for everything. She is so strong willed. We'll pull hair if she doesn't get her way. We've been ignoring tantrums and it's working slowly with every little step. Seems to be about defiance.
What does it matter if she says no? It still has to be done. My granddaughter's going through a stage. Okay, time to change your diaper. No. And I just pick her up and change her diaper. Okay, time to eat. No. I pick her up and put her in the tower. She eats at the tower right now. So yeah. Oh, you got to hold grandma's hand. We're crossing the street. No. I hold her hand and we cross the street. Just follow up with what it needs to be done. So the word no, you're giving too much power to it. Okay, time to go to bed. No. Pick them up and put them in bed. Follow it up with an action.
What are your thoughts on threats?
I can't stand them. If you don't do that, I'll do this. It sounds like you're afraid of them. I let them commit the crime and then I come in with the consequence. I don't try and prevent bad behavior. I deal with it after it's happened. I let them make the choice. Because if you're trying to prevent bad behavior and threatening them, you're actually micromanaging and they're not going to have any pride. They're just going to become obedient little soldiers, or that's what you're after. You don't want obedient little soldiers. That's ridiculous. That's going to backfire big time when they're teenagers. They're going to rebel like crazy. Okay. You want them to make their own choices. I would never try and prevent a kid from doing something naughty unless it's going to hurt them or someone else, obviously. But I let them do it. And then I say, oh, that was an interesting choice. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. Here's your consequence. I want them to make their own decisions. Then you end up with self-disciplined kids who feel like they have control and autonomy over their own lives. That's why you felt that you had autonomy growing up. You felt you had control because I never told my kids what to do. They already knew what had to be done. They knew they had to make their bed. They knew they had to go to school. They knew they had to do their homework. I would never tell them to do any of that stuff. Why not?
I just felt like you trusted us to do it.
I did trust them to do it. And if they didn't, I'd say that was interesting. You chose not to do that. So here's a consequence.
The irony of it now is like, just because we work together too, it's so funny. Whenever I tell people I work with my mom, I feel like sometimes people have that in their head and they think, "Oh, okay, like, I guess you get told what to do the whole time." And I'm like, "No."
Well, we work separately, and I never told my kids what to do anyway, but we work separately, and also, I'm not her boss at all. If anything, it's the other way around. You do all the marketing and planning, but I never was bossy with my kids, like, never. It was they knew the rules. I was a leader, though. I was a very good leader, but they knew the rules, and they knew if they didn't follow them, it was my job to come in. They'd even apologize to me. "Oh, sorry, I forgot to take the garbage out," or whatever. "How about a con" I'd say, "Ah, forget it, I already did it," or something, but yeah, it's not micromanaging is not getting what you want. What I mean is if you micromanage your kids and remember to do that, remember if you don't do that, I'm gonna do this, it's setting up a bad relationship with your kids. They're gonna rebel. They just are because they don't wanna be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do all the time. And then you're gonna say back to me, "But they won't do it if I don't tell them." That's okay. If they don't do it, then have a consequence afterwards. You deal with it afterwards. You let the mess happen, then clean it up after. Don't try and prevent it.
You talk about the importance of making mistakes just in general.
Because we all make mistakes, and it's important that they have the ability to make their own decisions and their own mistakes, and then when they do, then they can learn from them. If you try and prevent the mistakes, they're not gonna learn the lesson, right? They're gonna go nuts when they're teenagers, by the way. If you're after obedient soldiers, ooh, watch out for those teen years. Watch out. Big rebellion coming on.
I also noticed the kids that I was friends with where their parents were more the authority style, is there definitely were a lot of secrets being held from their parents.
Why would you why would you trust an authority with your deepest, darkest thoughts and secrets? Like, why would you trust them? Because you know they're gonna come at you, right? Whereas, why did you tell me everything?
Oh gosh, you know every part of my brain, parts you didn't even wanna have to
Hmm.
know. Um,
Why?
it felt like it was safe to do so.
Was I judgmental?
No, you weren't.
No. No. You know why? Because 'Cause I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Right? I think parents expect more from their kids than they do from themselves. I'm pretty conservative, I wasn't a troublemaker or anything, but I don't expect perfection. I do expect nice. That was the only thing I was really adamant about. You be nice. I
Yeah,
did
and
want nice kids.
you weren't faking it. Like, if I did something that you were maybe not the happiest with, you weren't like, "Well, that's okay." You were like, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that,
Yeah, I wouldn't
but,
have
you
done that.
know."
"Oh, well, that's your decision," and we'd work it through. They never got in trouble or anything, but they told me everything because I was a safe place to land. I never set myself up as being smarter than them. I never set myself up as being the know-it-all, that the one that can solve all their problems. If they did come to me with something, I'd say, "Oh, phew, what are you gonna do about that?" Or, "What do you think what do you think you should do about that?" I wanted them to figure it out themselves, basically. I wanted to raise self-disciplined, kids. I wanted them to be problem solvers. I didn't want them to come to me to solve their problems. I wanted them to come to me to lean on me and talk things through.
Yeah, and again, with the authority style, parents and again, I'm not a parent, so this is just what I've seen, is that if I've heard people say something along the lines of, "I just feel like I could never live up to my parents' expectations."
How sad is that? You know? And that's where the parents are expecting so much, and I want you to and you're really good at this, so I want you to go to college for this and that. Have you ever stopped and think maybe they don't wanna do that? Like, I was always saying to my kids, "You need to have a goal." I was very adamant about that. You need to get a part-time job at 15. That was not an option, because I wanted them to learn how to work. They're both almost compulsive workers. Um, not that that's great, but I mean, they're both really hard workers. But they had to get a job at 15, that was it. And then also I said, "You know, you have to have a goal, but that goal can change." I won't get into this, but, I remember one of my kids, um, decided not to follow a path that I thought they would follow, and I was quite sure that they would. And then they just said, it just doesn't feel right. And I had to sort of adjust my thought process around that too. And I had to respect that. And I said, sweetie, I said, if it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. But sometimes we'll see them going in one direction and we get our heart set on that. We think this is what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. And it's not a negative thing what happened at all. It was just a shift. And I thought, wow. And this is when they were like, older, like older teenagers. And they said, I've decided I don't like that. I don't want to do that. And I thought, wow, I didn't see that coming. But I was so happy that they felt safe enough to come to me and tell me that. And it wasn't a big deal even really, but I was so sure that this kid was going to go in this certain path. and they change their mind. And I said, well, great. So what are you going to do now? What's your plan? Or they might say, I don't know yet. I'll figure it out. But I wanted them to follow their own path. I didn't want them to think I had one laid out for them. I didn't want them to think I was disappointed if they didn't follow the path that I thought they were going to follow, because it's none of my business. It's their life, okay? And they've both done great anyway. So it's not like it was a negative one. It just surprised me. It wasn't what I saw coming. So
Okay, get into the next one.
I was very vague about that on purpose. It wasn't a negative thing at all. It was just something I was shocked. And I thought, how nice that they came to me and told me that and said, I know that this seems like the easy path and the way to go, but yeah, I don't like it. And I thought, oh, interesting. Okay, well, let's get another path going. Let's get another goal going. See, you want to be that safe place to land. You want them to be able to talk through things with you. You don't want to have all the answers, because you don't anyway, by the way. You don't know it all.
Okay. We have Lauren from the United States. Hi, Lisa. I have a question about my 7-year-old son. Unfortunately, he's been around some children that have been a not so good influence on him. He talks very vulgar, has an issue with touching others' private parts, and thinking it's funny. He also has instant rage and anger and snaps at his 4-year-old brother over small things, which includes hitting or pinching their face. He enjoys being a vengeance and getting revenge. It makes me very worried about how he will turn out as an adult, and we just have no idea how to fix all the issues. We started a board, and his first rule was no hitting. He's been okay so far on that, but I'm worried about all the other issues and have no clue on how to fix them. Any advice would be appreciated.
Don't blame the other kids. A lot of parents do this. They're not susceptible to other people's influence if you're a leader. So work on yourself, work on your relationship with your kid. He's only influenced by other people because he wants that. You can't be influenced if you don't want it to, okay? Unless there's something else going on. Is he being threatened? If you don't do this, then you'll get, you know what I mean? Other kids are threatening. You might want to look into that. But you said he has a lot of vengeance and anger in him. So that would almost be, I'd have to figure that one out if it's maybe is something else going on. But overall, if you're a good leader, they are not influenced by bad behavior because their self-esteem is high. His self-esteem is low, by the way. So you want to work on that. You increase his self-esteem, he'll make better choices. Your relationship with him is what increases his self-esteem. They are not susceptible to other kids' bad behavior unless they want to do it anyway, okay? That's very important for parents to understand. They keep blaming the other kids. I don't understand that. If you're blaming the other kids, you're taking the blame off yourself. You want to take that blame. You want to think, what am I missing here? What am I doing wrong? What have I got to work on with myself as a parent? That's the angle you want to take.
Okay, the next one is Jasmine from Canada. My 4-year-old and 3-year-old have started to lie, or almost 3-year-old. It's been a few months since I got off behavior boards and doing the moment by moment discipline, but I'm a little worried because they were never lying before and now they lie to avoid the consequence. So I heard Lisa say to tell them if you lie, it's going to be 2 consequences, but most of the time I don't know if my daughter or my son did it, so I don't know who should get the double consequence. Also, any tips for helping them become more accountable of their own actions, even if it means getting a consequence?
I would like to know where I said if you lie, you get 2 consequences. I've never said that before. I can't imagine where I would have said that. If I did, it would have been out of context. No, lying does not get 2 consequences. I don't know where that would have come from. Did we ever talk about anything do you remember anything like that?
So just to confirm, if they hit their brother and then they lie about it, they don't get a consequence for each of those items?
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay. So it wasn't just lying, you get 2 consequences. Oh, okay. That's what's confusing me. Okay, so if they hit and they lied and you have 2 behavior boards, one says no hitting, one says no lying. Yes, there's 2 consequences. Yes. So, but I got kind of focused on that. What was the rest of the question?
Just that the lying has started?
Oh, well, then just deal with it. Just say, okay, no lying, put it on a behavior board. And if they lie, there's a consequence. If they hit, there's a consequence if you've got it on a board. Okay. Now, a lot of parents will say, what about all the other bad behavior? And I say, well, you're not there yet. I would deal with everything in day 1 because I'm level 10 with this because I invented this stuff, right? But when you're learning how to do this calm leadership stuff, you just pick 1 behavior per week. So I would pick the hitting. Hitting's always worse than lying. So pick the hitting. So say no hitting. And if they do, there's a consequence. You're probably getting into discussions around it. If they're arguing with you, you're probably discussing it. You can't do that. Just say, okay, you hit, here's your consequence. And then if they lie about it, then say, okay, now you lied.
This might be a good time to go into how to approach it if you're not sure who's the liar.
Okay. So 3 and 4.
So
okay,
almost 3-year-old.
Almost 3, a little bit young for this. You got to be on top of that. If you're not sure who's lying, just say, "I'm not sure, and we'll figure it out later," or, "I'm not sure this time, so we'll just let it go." If you're not sure, you can't do it. You have to know what's happened. You have to keep your eye, there's all sorts of cameras out there that you can use if you're in the other room. I would get those, those cameras, baby cams and all that. So you gotta figure it out to do it. You gotta figure it out to know what to do, okay? So you can't just go, giving consequences if you're not sure who started it and all that stuff. But yeah, you got to watch that. A little bit confused by this because so he hit and then he lied about hitting. That I wouldn't give two consequences because maybe you're wrong. Maybe he is right. Like, yeah, you got to figure it out. You got to know for sure who hit, and then you can. Then if you already know for sure that you hit, then they say no, I didn't. I wouldn't give another consequence for that lie. No, I wouldn't actually. He's just defending that hit. Okay. So, but if you're positive he hit, he hit, hand out a consequence for that. But if it's a separate lie, then I would give another consequence.
Whoa, almost fell there.
Oh, wow, that chair is dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Amanda from the United States, 3 and 6-year-old. How to navigate behavior at the dinner table. Kids play and talk a lot and don't finish eating. We eat clean and healthy. Only dairy is a restriction. We want meal times to be fun and exciting. We squashed all other medical issues. It's literally a behavior issue. Very strong-willed children and respectful.
Well, I don't get that. Are they just laughing or you said playing? Are there toys or devices at the table? And that should be family time. Like one thing that's working really well with a lot of my clients is the never-ending story. So you say, and you control it, and you say, "Look, we're going to start doing this new thing at dinner." They're old enough, and say, "We're going to start telling a story. I'll start with the first sentence, then you go, then you go." So it's the never-ending story. You just keep adding to it. So have some activity like that where it's just chatting. And if you said they're playing. I don't quite understand what they're playing with. There should be no toys or devices at the table. So, but yeah, I don't know what they're playing with. So yeah, you control the narrative. Say, "What'd you do today?" Or, "Do you want to talk about, I saw this interesting thing?" Or, "Do you want to, I saw something funny?" Or, like get the conversation going. They're old enough. They like talking to you. If you're entering their world, they don't want to hear you correcting them, but they want you to have fun with them. So if you're asking them, "You know what I saw the other day? Did you see that? I saw you do that at soccer and you did that." They love talking about themselves. Get the conversation going. Are you sitting down with them? And are you trying to chat and maybe play that never-ending story? And when you're doing that, there should be like a little device that goes in front of each one. It could be a little timer. So look, you've got 1 minute to tell your story, a part of the story, and then the timer goes off, and then you give it to the next kid. Visual cues like that really help too. So have a plan.
Okay, we have one more question. So, Henley from the United States. I would love some insight in dealing with my 6-year-old son. For a couple of years now, he's been very combative. He's quite physical, difficult to discipline. I know his connection and self-esteem are quite low. Some things I've been working on is not discussing the bad behavior and not showing that I'm upset over stuff he does. He will often lash out to his 3-year-old brother if he's doing something the 6-year-old doesn't like. He calls people names, including me, when he's upset with them. He gets both hysterical sometimes when something goes wrong. I try to say, "Hey, that wasn't cool. Here's a consequence." He will often respond with, "I don't want to talk or listen. I'm not doing XYZ," and storms off. He does not care about the second consequence. I struggle with finding something to remove or put up. I try to connect after the timer is up and act like nothing happened after giving the secondary consequence, but I struggle to find what will really mean the most to him with connection. He loves to be silly, but it often is an extreme point where it's bathroom humor, which I don't like in excess, or once it exceeds a point. Or he wants to pretend silly situations and scenarios, but I'm not sure the best way to steer the direct the play in silliness in more of a wholesome direction. There's a very funny and sensitive little boy inside of there, but I struggle to know how to pull it out of him with the mean, bad attitude lashing out, using words to hurt other people's feelings. I would greatly appreciate any insight.
What an unhappy kid. Um, yeah, I would just find, okay, what does he like to do? He likes silly stuff. I don't know, find science experiments, magic tricks, and play with him with the little brother also. So you say, "Okay, tonight we're going to do this magic show or something," and get something going where you're in control of the play and it's something new that you've introduced and it's something interactive, but it's not competitive. There's no winner, there's no loser. Okay. So get some activities going where you're in control and it's fun and he likes it. It's silly. It could be some little theater thing that you put on, could be mimicking one of their characters. We used to do that. I won't go into it, but we did a lot of crazy stuff. But yeah, be in charge of the fun sometimes too. You want them to be in charge of the fun a lot of the time, but you can bring in stuff that, like most little boys love magic and science. Like science experiments. There's a lot of baking soda and vinegar stuff out there. Used with caution and all that. But you can go on YouTube and fun things to do with stuff just around the house. So get some ideas going, get some activities going. His self-esteem's in the toilet. You already know that. Follow through with consequences. Sounds like you're on the right track. I don't know what else is going on with this kid, but sounds like he's kind of really miserable. He's really unhappy. So find ways of connecting and playing with him. And you got to find ways that you enjoy it too. Like I happen to like, I don't like magic actually, but I do like science stuff. I do like acting stuff out and being silly. So it sounds like he also has a silly, gene in him. So yeah, maybe it's just acting out roles, like something that he likes watching and then acting that out and just having fun with it.
Make mommy laugh nights.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go into that because once I get going, anyway, we did a lot of that. Make mommy laugh nights, they were called. And what we would do is you're about maybe 8 and 3 when we started doing this. And we did it a lot, like pretty much every night after dinner. And we'd do Make Mommy Laugh nights. And we'd play part of the Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey movies. We'd just play a scene from that and then we'd act it out. You went first because you were the worst at it because you were little. And then you'd act it out pretending you were Jim Carrey. It was hilarious. She was so bad at it. Then it was my turn. Then I would mimic her doing it, which was horrible. And then I'd do it. I was horrible. Well, my son was the master. He could have been Jim Carrey. I mean, he's just really funny. He just can nail all this stuff. So then he would mimic her doing it, me doing her doing it, me doing it, and then he'd just perfect it. And it was hilarious. By the time we finished, I always ended up wetting my pants. I was laughing so hard. So then we used to call it Make Mommy Pee nights because I'd wet my pants. We had a blast. It was just so silly, though. It was just silly. So yeah, it doesn't have to be anything that you buy even. It can just be something silly like that. Kids love it when you're laughing with them in their company, doing something they're enjoying also. Brings out the best in them, makes them feel good. This kid feels bad about himself. Make him feel good.
I knew I was so bad at it too.
Yeah, but you played into that because you loved it because it was fun. It was just fun. You were bad at it. We all knew that your brother was the master with all this stuff. We were both terrible at it. So we loved that though. Like there was no competition. It was just fun. Literally. And they used to say, Mom, go to the bathroom before we start. But sure enough, I'd end up wetting myself anyway. I was laughing that hard. It was fun.
You should have had like a catheter set up for you.
Well, I used to say that. Can't you have a Make Mommy Laugh night catheter? Yeah. Anyway, so that they feel good about themselves when they're enjoyed. Not when you're buying them stuff, not when you're taking them places. That's fun, but they feel good about themselves when you are enjoying their company. Truly enjoying their company. Nothing makes you feel better than someone enjoying your company.
It's so true. And I remember growing up as well. Imagine this. My mom isn't great at sugarcoating things.
Not at all.
But I appreciated the fact that you would let me know when you didn't enjoy doing something specific with me because it made me trust you that you enjoyed everything else.
And yeah, I never pretended. So I'd say, nah, I hate that. Nah, I hate that. And then we'd come up with something that I would like, right? And I'd say, oh, no, I like that. Let's do that. So I never pretended. They would see right through that. I don't have a filter. I can't fake anything. Like I'm just not good at that. So, but yeah, I would very much say, nah, I hate that. No, I don't like that. No, I hate that. And then they'd say, well, how about this? And I'd say, sure, let's give it a go. So if you're pretending to enjoy your kids' company, they don't notice it as much when they're toddlers, but as they get older, they will notice that. Excuse me, my voice is going.
That's okay because we're done with the questions, unless there's anything else you want to add to this.
Okay, so should we be blaming kids for their bad behavior, their defiant behavior? No, blame yourself. Even if it isn't your fault, blame yourself anyway. A leader takes full responsibility for the people under their care, for their children, for their employees, whatever. If you're a good leader, you take full responsibility for their behavior because you're the only one that's really in charge and you want them to feel like they are in control of their own lives. You are in charge of the narrative and the energy in the room. Take control. Stay on the high road. Let them join you there. Don't go on the low road with them if they're screaming and kicking and having a fit and being rude. Do not start yelling at them. Do not start lecturing them. That's the low road. You let them join you on the high road. Stay calm, be fun, and deal with the bad behavior, but move on.
I think that's a nice place to end it.
There you go. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again soon talking about another parenting topic. Happy parenting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out BratBusters.com to learn more about the Behavior Board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit BratBusters.com/disclaimer.